Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Roby, and MScribe. And congratulations, TJ. We're going to be talking about Ethereum.
Finally.
Yes, but specifically in a very positive light, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very, very, very positive.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about anything that's like specifically for the bear, right? For bearish sentiment. Not specifically.
No, but if you're an Ethereum holder, you know.
It's been sad times.
This is well overdue, right?
Yes.
We need like a very credible bull thesis.
Yeah.
Because if you weathered the Solana storm over the last 2 years, I'd say.
It's quite the storm.
Just watching people it's literally like that SpongeBob meme, right? Where you're Squidward and you're looking at SpongeBob and Patrick just frolicking, having a blast outside.
Yeah, you're looking
through the little window like these motherfuckers, dude. They're over there having all the fun.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here on a dino chain that's like appears at the time to be doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
But really, there's some pretty big things that were happening, like
I saw
in silence, I guess.
a unicorn appear at the French Colosseum.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, if you watched yesterday's video at the end, you'll know what the hell he's talking about, right? The Robinhood announcement. Pretty impressive presentation. I think everybody should check it out.
TJ, did you know Vitalik showed up there?
I did not.
Yeah. He was in there in swimsuits and
he just was summoned, dude. He just was like, here's
I might have
Robinhood.
to check this out after.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Vitalik in the wild, dude. He's been busy man.
Yeah. Thank you, girlfriend.
Yeah, girlfriends tend to do that. They keep you pretty occupied. But, so let's get into it, dude. Like, so we've been talking, common theme, I guess, lately is the Bitcoin Treasury company mania.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, per our assessment, this is becoming a bigger deal than not, right?
Yes.
Something that is becoming like a center point of discussion. We've got to all kind of like get the grips on reality, what's happening. Like, traditional finance is involving themselves in our industry in a very major way.
As predicted?
Yes, it wasn't certain how that was going to manifest, but we're seeing the mechanics of manifestation like play out before our eyes. But we're wondering, it's like, okay, what about the rest of the crypto space? Is it just like a Bitcoin only exclusive phenomenon?
Turns out
it's not, dude.
Nope. Yeah, so we got Bitmine. So Bitmine is basically the Microstrategy, but for Ethereum.
That's what they say, dude.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what that means, definitely look up Microstrategy. It is the company head of Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
Right? The one who's been like literally persistently buying Bitcoin for the last 4 years.
Yep.
Over the last year or so, his efforts have accelerated dramatically to the point where he now has over like 600,000 Bitcoin, right? So successful strategy, $100 billion company as a result.
That's right. Yeah. So it started at roughly, what was it, $4 and it went to 60, 70?
And it's sharp correction, right? So we're going to explain why this is happening, right? This is happening in real time. So we've seen a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies coming out, like Pompliano spun one up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think his stock has like officially entered the market yet, but we've seen, we've talked about Strive pairing with asset equities or asset entities. And then we looked at the chart as soon as they announced their, conversion of, I guess like a traditional stock company into a Bitcoin treasury company, 20 to 30x typically ensues pretty quickly.
Yeah. And the measuring stick here is, can you outperform Bitcoin? Because most things do not. And so that's the challenge for all these like managers here for these projects is to outperform Bitcoin. And if you can do that, you're going to scoop up a ton of capital.
Yeah, and how that's achieved is still kind of like in the air, I would say. I mean, the most optimal way to do that, at least for now, is to accelerate your growth of Bitcoin accrual, right? Like the way MicroStrategy MetaPlanet has.
Yeah.
They have exclusive, I guess, like corner on their markets, MetaPlanet in Japan, Japanese market.
Yeah.
MicroStrategy in the U.S. markets.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job at quickly, increasing their stack of Bitcoin. And the result of that is an outpacing growth of their stock.
And there's a couple of factors here also is that we have the traditional equity finance market, which is like hundreds and trillions of dollars worth of value, having very little exposure to Bitcoin outside of ETFs. So ETFs is just a holdings company of the asset. And Microstrategy and all these treasury companies are not holdings. They can do stuff with the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so, like, what could they do? They haven't really announced, but that's the theory, is that they intend to do something with the asset.
Yeah, and I think at some point, maybe a company like, Master doesn't necessarily have to do much just because of the sheer
Big number one, first.
Yeah,
first is first.
First mover advantage. They have such a huge lead. They literally pioneered this whole treasury model concept. So not much needs to be done. But if there's going to be like a broader ecosystem of other companies trying to replicate this model,
yeah,
they're going to have to get fancy with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In order to stay relevant and to compete in the market.
Yeah, so we were talking about Bitmine, Ethereum, and so who's running this? Turns out it is Tom Lee. So Tom Lee makes tons of appearances on CNN.
CNBC, really.
CNBC, yeah. And he's been pretty accurate with Bitcoin predictions.
Yeah, that's how I knew him. It seems like every cycle, Tom Lee just appears, and everyone's like, Tom, when should we all sell?
Yeah, what's the number?
And he's typically on the ball, right?
Yeah.
And so he's built quite a credible reputation around that. And because of that, his presence in this initiative has resulted in tremendous value, right?
Yeah, so he's raised $250 million through private placement to purchase Ethereum. And so the question is, well, why? So he says, according to the market veteran, ETH stands to benefit rather significantly because of the Genius Act. And the Genius Act is about stablecoins, and the legislation clears the path for stablecoins to traverse further into mainstream adoption. And so now we have a clear path, right? The stablecoin utilization is like essentially peer-to-peer cash in a way. You don't have to wait for banks to open up. You can send it over the weekend.
Yeah.
And so there's a clear use case for Ethereum in this sense with stablecoins. And so Tom Lee has picked Ethereum as a future reserve asset for BMNR since he remains bullish on its future for cryptocurrency.
And I see a little price prediction there.
Yeah, so according to the forecast from late 2024, ETH should hit 5,000 by the end of this year, indicating a potential 100% rally.
Yeah, because it's sitting out at roughly 2,500 today. So if Mr. Lee continues his notable esteem at being on the money.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like the end of it. That's just the end of this year, right? We got all 2026 left.
Yeah.
Feels like all the makings of what's happening here, and all these different companies kind of molding themselves to the crypto industry, regulations kind of playing into all that. It's really setting the foundations for like a 2026 industry-wide bull market, I think, which is interesting.
I feel like that's where a ton of volume is going to come in.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's definitely off skew from like cycles past.
Yep.
Typically, 2026, which is what is that, like 2 years post a halvening?
Yes.
That's like when things are collapsing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In most cases. But there's a lot of differences in this cycle compared to the past ones. The major one is the institutional involvement, right? So we should expect differences, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we're not going to see the volatility tends to go down as bigger money comes in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, all right, continuing on here, it says Bitmine emergent stock triples as it raises $250 million. So I think as of now, it's almost it's done more than that, right? 4 or 5x.
Well, let's look at the chart again.
Yeah. So
let's get a live action view, dude. This thing is hella volatile.
Wait, this is 5 days. Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, literally, as Tom Lee was on CNBC yesterday morning, the thing was trading at $3 or $4. So I mean,
that's insane.
These are insane rallies for the stock market,
Yeah. All right, so let's see what this says here.
But he's not alone, because I think we've talked about this before. So there's a little bit of confusion even amongst ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's I thought Joe Lubin was doing this, right?
Yeah, the first that I heard about a MicroStrategy for Ethereum was Joe Lubin.
Which was a month ago or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consensus CEO Joe Lubin to head the $425 million Ethereum treasury firm. So Joe Lubin, a co-founder of Ethereum, now
he's Consensus.
Consensus, yeah. Now he's actually doing the MicroStrategy strategy, but for Ethereum as well. So
Yeah.
he's planning to raise $1 billion.
Yeah, so you might be wondering, is how are these people able to do this, right?
Yeah.
What is the levers that these people have where they could just conjure up so much capital and to like execute on these types of game plans, right?
Yeah. So it's a function of networking and
Reputation,
Yeah.
esteem, your previous accolades. You know, Michael Saylor has been around for seemingly forever in the tech industry.
Yep.
He has a proven history of like pioneering and understanding these markets and the pace of evolution of technology and such. So all that accredits his, you know, his backability, I guess, for his new ventures and such.
So if you were to buy some of these assets, you are betting on these individuals actually executing in their networking and their experience.
Yeah, like we're saying, like these are the beginning stages of like a much bigger, I think, bull market euphoria around this concept. So, you know, these guys are the big players, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like when blockchain mania first started, whenever, you know, Ethereum came, proved the model of like a programmable blockchain. And then all of a sudden you see like a lot of new iterations of that, typically by people with notable backgrounds, right? People who were involved in the Ethereum project, like people like Dan Larimer, people like Charles Hoskinson's, people like Gavin Wood, right? These people had all deep involvement in Ethereum success, and then they spun off their own entities and creations and forks, essentially.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how it starts, but that wasn't the end of the blockchain, like Cambrian expansion, right? There's thousands of blockchains now. You don't necessarily have to be, you know, that notable anymore. You could just literally be anybody and spin up a blockchain.
Yeah, so this occurred about a month ago. So on June 2nd, online casino marketing firm SharpLink Gaming closed a $425 million funding round. And so they announced that Joe Lubin was going to be heading this whole thing. So yeah, now we have SharpLink Gaming as part of this mix here. And, you know, a month apart, there's still, you know, we don't know who's going to win this one, but I would hedge your bets. So SharpLink Gaming, S-Bet, also did like a 10x.
That looks way bigger than a 10x.
So that's oh no, you're right.
That's like a
20x.
20 to 30x. Yeah, that's quite the explosion, dude. So you're probably wondering like, why the hell are you guys talking about it now? It's like, that's the question, right? Because all these, you know, pivots into crypto treasury companies, their charts look exactly the same. They all have like an initial wave of euphoria and price action to follow. Yeah. And then a crash, right? So the question is, what do we do with this information, right?
Yeah. So let's take a look at strategy. So they've been around for 5 years doing this.
Yeah.
And when Michael Saylor made his announcement, the stock master also did sort of like a 5x. And then it crashed over a year down to 80% losses, and then now it's back up 20x here.
So that was like 4 years of stagnation.
Yeah.
So is that the answer? It's like expect 4 years of stagnation for all these new treasury companies?
Yeah. So the first one to do it tends to be the slowest one.
It's like the hardest to...
And the hardest to like
the most amount of friction, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't expect this long of a time span for, you know, to take advantage of, you know, the upside potential.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we talked about the Genius Act. So this is something that we need to dive deeper into, but it's based on stablecoins, and like we're trying to wrap our minds on what that means. Like ultimately, like regulating stablecoins, does that mean that companies are going to be issuing their own stablecoin, or is it going to be through a few entities who get regulatory approval? Like, how does it going to work?
Yeah, the government, or you know, this current administration, whatever actors involved, are doing a really good job of pressuring, you know, these governmental bodies to actually put together sensible frameworks and like new definitions and such. Like, if you look into this stuff, a lot of it makes a lot of sense, and it definitely leaves a little bit of a scope of opportunity for, you know, more innovation and not so much like, I don't know, burden requirements, and it lifts a lot of the SEC's jurisdiction away from a lot of things, specifically around DeFi and stablecoins, which is a big deal because I think at some point all this eventually is going to link into DeFi some way.
Yeah. Yeah, also part of the Genius Act is a little bit of limitation on taxes on some of these tokens. So I think if you do a transaction that's under $600, You don't have to pay short-term capital gains on that.
Yeah.
So that's just to encourage people using the actual blockchain to trade, buy some assets.
Yeah. So this is the bull thesis around Ethereum, right? If there's a company out there saying they're raising capital, which the capital we're talking about here is fiat, which is, it has the same macro narrative as Bitcoin treasury companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like convert a bleeding treasury management model into a much more like nurtured model, which is securing an asset like a Bitcoin that, has that historical outperformance, right?
Yep.
Therefore strengthening the prospects of a company in general. So can you do the same thing with Ethereum? It's a little bit harder to justify, but when you add in the idea of stable coins, it kind of makes that much more viable.
Yeah. So you're talking about gold being the store of value. So it makes sense for, the traditional markets that have to do with 401ks, all that, to buy into Bitcoin. But we're also dealing with DeFi, decentralized finance, where it's like it's about programmable money. And so that seems like something that is investable as well.
Yeah, and I think it's going to require like these regulatory things to actually pass through, because none of them are fully through the gate yet, right?
Yeah.
But once they do, you can expect a lot more pressure for like these corporate treasury managers to incorporate, other crypto assets into their balance sheets, right? Would you say?
No, I couldn't agree more. And, if we haven't talked about stocks enough, let's talk more about 3 must-watch stocks to get into as a result of Genius Act.
Okay.
And so I looked at this list, and I was surprised, but not kind of surprised. Fiserv is in here. So Fiserv is a traditional payments processing company that's been around for a long time, dealing with Visa and MasterCard networks. And from the perspective of stablecoins, right, that 2 to 3% from Visa and MasterCard, they're going to get cut out. And so how do these like legacy networks benefit? And it's through leveraging of stablecoins. So it would be interesting to see like what they do and how credit cards like compensate. The 3% cash returns on a lot of these credit cards. What are they going to do now, right?
So you're saying in order for a company like this to survive and remain competitive would be to become stablecoin issuers themselves?
I think so.
See, that's a weird like reality to imagine, because keep going down this list. You got PayPal and Walmart here.
Yeah, PayPal and Walmart.
And I think Amazon's not on this list, but I think there's like Amazon is positioned as well. And basically any retailer can fall within these new jurisdiction guidelines or parameters to become a stablecoin issuer.
Right.
Because as long as they do like whatever the requirements are. So what does that mean? Like every store we go to,
I don't know.
We're minting stable coins?
Yeah, we're going to be using like stablecoin for Walmart, stablecoin for Amazon. They each give you their own benefits for using them.
Yeah, because they're saving a lot of money, like you're saying.
Yes. Yeah.
From not relying on,
the traditional payment networks,
traditional payment rails.
Yeah.
So now they can offer new benefits and such, but that's just I seems weird now, but I guess once we're like it's normalized, instead of like walking around with all these different like credit cards, with their own reward programs,
right?
We're just walking around with digital wallets.
Right? Yeah, with a phone, you go pay in Walmart, it uses the Walmart bucks. And then on Amazon, electronic payments, you're using the Amazon bucks.
Yeah, so I think that's the vision, like this Genius Act is kind of like putting into motion.
Yeah.
Right? Or whoever the proponents of this are. So I mean this is great. And again, a lot of this is going to be facilitated through the backbone infrastructure of Ethereum.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. All right, let's continue on here. It says, where are we at? Ethereum stablecoin volume hit record 900 billion as institutions and tech giants and Trump jumps in. So yeah, stablecoins. It's like Bitcoin, probably, one of the more important digital assets. And then after that is stablecoins. But really underpinning that is Ethereum.
Yeah. So this is interesting. We're starting to paint like a really big macro thesis here that supports finally like Ethereum coming out of its slumber mode, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But some people's interpretation, because of Ethereum's lack of performance over this cycle so far, is like all these L2s, like Coinbase L2, Sony L2, Kraken L2 for ETH, Deutsche Bank, and all these other, and now Robinhood.
Yeah.
What are how is Ethereum going to benefit from these parasites?
I mean, I think we kind of like agreed for a moment.
Yeah.
Because it definitely seemed like such, right? It's like, Base was having all of its like activity, and it's like there's new metas forming there, and like new platforms, and like all this stuff. That's all transactional volume for that chain, right? For Base, which gets funneled to Coinbase.
Yeah.
Revenue stream, and not back to Ethereum. So it felt very vampiric.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and the way that these L2s work, they use some sort of roll-up technology like optimistic roll-ups or ZK roll-ups, and they leverage the main chain security. And what these are doing, they're alleviating the main chain from like congestion.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, more volume in these L2 chains benefits the main chain.
Yeah, I mean, it is processing transactions, like you said, in these like different roll up tech stacks.
Yeah.
But just the market hasn't, I don't know, formulated the right narrative, I guess, or maybe there just isn't enough demonstration of the results of that. I guess once like more users start to come in, more stablecoin issuers start to deploy, and a lot of this is happening in tandem to Ethereum, that whole like sentiment alignment could eventually explode, right?
Yeah, and ETH is sort of like an ETF. It's like the asset represents the entire ecosystem of Ethereum, which includes L2. Like Base doesn't have a token.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're going to speculate on the value production out of Ethereum, you're going to buy ETH. And so you're right. I don't think the narrative has formed for the masses to understand that.
Yeah, like Bitcoin has such a hot narrative, right? Digital gold.
Yeah.
And Michael Saylor has done a hell of a job of packaging that into like a palatable understanding of like why you need to own some of that.
Yeah, just wait until it breaches the digital or the gold market cap. And then what's the narrative at that point?
Yeah, that's when people are starting to get much more esoteric with their interpretation, right? This thing is like bigger than the universe, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
It's like forming new dimensions and shit. And then here we come along. It's like, but then there's like digital matter.
It's physics, yeah.
It's physics,
digital
guys.
Physics.
How do you slap a value on God?
Yeah.
That's what Bitcoin seems like to us.
Yeah.
It's on its way to godlike, I don't know, godlike potential. But yeah, Ethereum. So these new guys, Joe Lubin, Tom Lee, their job now is to pull off a Michael Saylor. They need to put together the right narrative for a collective understanding and consensus in this idea that let's build a whole new modern financial system.
Yeah, let's update money. Let's do that.
Correct. So I mean that's to be determined if they could pull this off. I mean, Tom Lee has quite the platform, literally on CNBC like every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're gonna place your bets, those are the horses, at least the leading horses. More will come, I'm sure of it, but
Yeah, if MicroStrategy is any indication, doing this for Ethereum makes a lot of sense. So it's a reasonable bet. But all right, that's it for us, guys. If you have any questions on stocks, we're your guys. Now, right?
I don't know. We'll see. We have quite the moon room establishment for crypto picks in our past, right?
Yeah.
Go back to the Decentraland days, 400x there.
Yeah.
Polygon Matic, another 400x there.
Yeah.
Freaking bitmaps, 400x there. BRCs, whatever, right? All the historical crypto calls we made in the past.
They're all there.
The archive is there, but now we got to build a whole new room, dude.
The stock room?
Yeah. The other moon room, I guess. I don't know. So
we'll
see.
Yeah. So if you guys find anything interesting in the crypto space as well as the stock space, we want to hear about all the AI plays, all the fusion energy plays that you guys are doing.
I don't know if we're going that deep.
We might, dude.
But I would like to hear about it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You got like a cool pitch. For sure.
All right. That's it for us. I appreciate you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.